Recording.
Why, hello everyone. This is Kathy Ehrlich again. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 7:02 by my clock. Go ahead and.
And for the pledge.
I don't think you can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, so we'll.
Rise as high as I can.
Okay.
There's actually a flag right in front of me on the road, so.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My girlfriend likes to come wherever she is in the apartment just to watch me stand and pledge no flag.
That's the first time I've actually pledged to a flag since it started, so that's very good.
She could do an interpretation of a flag for you. That would be nice.
She is wearing red, white, and blue.
There you go. All right. So, public with us today?
There is no public.
There is no public. And we have, what minutes do we have left to approve? We have just last month?
The June minutes. I will make a motion to do so.
Second.
All right, first by Rory, second by Stefan. So moved. All right, it brings us to the meat of the matter. Our next steps discussion. So when we last met, I was going to attempt to create some marketing content or material to launch the concept of Agile or the philosophy of Agile to the internal teams in support of implementing their tasks of the strategic plan. And as I was going through the process, I had a bit of difficulty in realizing, that it may not be a model that would work universally for a lot of different reasons. So in the midst of that crisis, I contacted Rory, and he had, it seems, been having a similar thought process, it was a relief to know that it wasn't just me. So what we came to was that perhaps what we needed to do was discuss a different direction, or a slightly different direction going forward. So Rory, you did a much better job.
Repeat my rant from the other day.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, more of the same I said last time. The more I'm thinking about it, the reason why everything has been so difficult and we've been struggling to come up with a process that works without an insane amount of work on our part is, I think, because the only solution is moving towards professionalizing the process and turning this board into an oversight body. We take input from people. Then what we did was we grouped together similar concerns, we changed everybody's words, and we handed it back to them. The things that they said that they needed-ish are handed back to them in words that aren't their own. Which is why I had to retranslate the 1 year list back to the people who, for the most part, the ones who originated it, right? So I just don't think the current model that we use is sustainable in the long term. And I think what we should do is create a plan on how we want to transition to a professionalized process while continuing to execute what we're doing. So what I mean by that is not working to draft new content for the plan, just executing 1-year plans like we are currently, clarifying the existing 10-year plan, and breaking it down into digestible goals that we can assign in 1-year plans, while simultaneously creating this plan to transition the process to the professional staff and moving ourselves to the oversight. Because, you know, Don wants to lead the board, right? Who do we bring in? And we've struggled to find members because of the workload of this board, and it's not going to get any better.
And there are fewer of us.
There are fewer.
And, you know, one of the things that Rory and I talked about was that, you know, even the thought of going back and doing what we did, you know, in the beginning is just, you know, interviewing and going back to that was just, it's not possible. It's just simply not something that we are in a position to do. However, having the people who are the process owners, work more collaboratively with us, and we just sort of review what they're planning and go, well, yes, this looks great. However, what about this or that? Seems to make more sense.
I mean, I'd hoped that, I mean, Stefan, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like you were kind of on board with the general concept of that anyway.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the plan is only as powerful as the professional staff makes it anyways. So they should be the owners of it.
So I'd hoped that Bob would be here so that we could, I don't know, gauge him a little bit better. Because this is like a pretty drastic departure from what we've been doing. But, you know, in terms of next steps, I don't know where that leaves us. Obviously, you know, it's July, and we had a couple months that we missed, and we've made like, we did a COVID check, but that's really all we've done this year, right? We checked the plans against COVID and saw to see if there was anything that was no longer possible. So I don't know if our focus for the rest of this year should just be trying to clarify some of the existing plan and then and brainstorming the transition process. You know,
I feel like, well, so one thing I would want to know is what is feedback that you receive from the professional staff in terms of they've been given this list. What was the reaction? Is there a reaction? You know, are they working on it, or was it just sort of like chucked?
I mean, we haven't had feedback since. Right. You know, one thing I'll say, and I think this was a big conceptual piece that we missed. You know, like I told you yesterday, I've been working on one for a different organization, so I've been reading a lot of different plans. And one framework that organizations use is very much like we have our pillars, which was just an organizational tool. that we group things together with. One way to do it, which I think maybe helps get us to more abstract concepts more easily, is grouping them by strategy. You know, it's a strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
What are the strategies, right? So I'm trying to think, like, I mean, it's a semantic difference, kind of. But I think it helps conceptually to do it. So, like, I'm trying to think of okay, so we had like I forget, pillar 4 is like efficient, effective local government or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Strategy is streamlining local government, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so most of what's in there probably fits. But if you look at it through the lens of streamlining, do all of them truly simplify the processes that are in place? Do they improve the processes that are in place? Or do some of them just kind of like take the status quo as a given, like things need to remain the way they are,
Mm-hmm.
and we just need to update it? You know what I mean? Can we do, it doesn't, I don't know if this is making sense or if I'm just ranting.
I think it's we have two different things that we have to tackle. And one of them is these, you know, the year-over-year goals. And then, you know, the process of professionalizing it.
Hmm.
The only thing that I'm a little foggy on, or that we need to figure out, is how do we, you know, we're leaving the creation of goals to people. Basically, we're saying, here, give yourself more work.
So
Is there something that, I guess maybe what we need to figure out is how do all the you know, how do the, what does the structure look like? I don't know.
So typically, it would, you know, basically all we would be doing is transferring the process to a similarly sized group of professional staff, right?
Mm-hmm.
The staff who don't already think strategically are unlikely to be part of that group. You know what I mean? They would not bring anything to the process, right? It's not going to be one person, right? It's not the first selectman creating this plan. It would be a group of strategic thinkers within the staff. And so, and you're supposed to draw from, you know, all different backgrounds and expertise, right?
Mm-hmm. Kind of like what we did. Yep.
Absolutely, right? I mean, we did it parallel, you know, kind of just outside of the organization. So, you know, a lot of the staff live in town, or at least they've been around long enough to know the town pretty well. I don't think they're familiar with the process, but I mean, there are the staff who, you know, take their own initiative and improve their programs. And, you know, I'm sure you guys could tell the difference doing interviews between people who were just kind of doing their job and other people who are constantly thinking how they can improve, you know? So
For sure.
I don't think people will view it as, right? What we've always said is, this is good for you, the staff, right? We're trying to give you this thing that is what you wanted. This is what you asked for when we talked to you. These are all of the changes that you wanted to see. Except now they're doing it themselves. So that the buy-in is just much easier. And I mean, there's somebody, whether it's, you know, me or the first selectman, who's driving the accountability loop. You know what I mean? These people, you know, usually there's like a strategic planning champion. And that's who you would want to be this liaison who goes back and forth between the board. And they're the one driving. They're the chair of the internal board. You know what I mean? Of this group of people who will be crafting the plan.
What do you think, Stefan?
I mean, yeah, I totally agree. I think having a champion of the plan is absolutely necessary. I don't think there's any accountability unless somebody's driving the ship.
Right. I think that's been one of the things that Rory and I spoke about yesterday. Is I think that's been part of the problem. Is we can recommend, we can suggest, but that's really where it ends. You know, so we can spend 6 years or however long it took us to get to where we are today, and somebody could look at it and go, nah.
Yeah, you know, it could fail. It could absolutely fail. We just have to hope that the accountability built into the ordinance is enough. That's really all we have. Because I mean, right, like that is the structure that most things in Seymour's charter, right? These are the mechanisms that are in place. You have a public works board. You have the sewer commission. You have, and all of them report to the Board of Selectmen, or can, you know, per the charter. So theoretically, if a first selectman is not on board and they're blowing it off, well, we're scheduled to be on the agenda per ordinance every December, and we can blast the first selectman to the rest of the board in a meeting. You know what I mean? That's the accountability mechanism. And if they refuse to put us on the agenda in December, I mean, it's an ordinance. You know, there's grounds for a lawsuit, technically. You know what I mean? Like, there are some teeth to this. God forbid it ever gets that far. I don't think it would, but, you know. Planning for a worst case scenario, there are ways. So, but anybody who's been on the board, you know, has seen the value that the plan has brought. You know, believe me, I'll tell them firsthand that S&P asks for a copy every single time we go up there. So, but I just think, you know, what's going to be important is how our process changes.
Right.
how we are keeping accountability to whoever is reporting to us. I mean, this is it. For this to be a successful board and for this process to add value, it's still going to be reliant on having people who are dedicated, right? This is not a blow-off board that you put bodies on, because this requires active participation and preparation and all that. It's just going to be a different kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Going out and doing a bazillion interviews. It's just going to be making, asking the right questions. Okay, well, you've been doing stakeholder interviews, strategic plan champion. Tell us what they're saying. Who have you interviewed recently? And, are you using a template? Tell us. It's going to require some serious follow-up, but it'll still be work. It's just a more manageable once a month meeting,
Right.
than what we're currently doing.
I agree. I mean,
That'll be nice for us.
yeah. It would be nice to be able to start seeing things being completed on a regular clip. I mean, yes, we have one or two departments that bang things out, but a lot of it seems to exist in abstraction. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find that thing I was talking about. Okay, this is it, Kathy. I'm gonna screen.
Mm-hmm. Can you share it?
I hope so. All the time. He's becoming a Zoom pro. So it's called the Eisenhower matrix, apparently. I did not know the word for it.
Okay.
So, Stefan, what I was trying to say when I was talking to Kathy is basically like, we are training wheels. We are crutches for the staff. We've been talking about wanting to bring about a culture change in Seymour to create a culture of planning. And yet, this outside group of people from the staff, is doing the planning for them.
Right.
That is my fundamental problem with our current model.
Yeah.
And so it reminded me of this, which they showed me in school, right? Not important and not urgent, right? You get rid of it because you shouldn't be doing it anyway. Urgent and important, do it now. And that's what we do in Seymour all the time. That's what people everywhere do. You put out fires and it takes up way too much of your time. And it doesn't leave you any time. It's not even, this isn't even the best one.
Well, it's reactionary. It's not proactive. It's reactive.
And so, I mean, this actually, schedule a time to do it is not the right message here, but the concept is there. We the staff spend far too much of our time in the top left quadrant here, just putting out fires. And that's what this board has said we want to eliminate, right? The reactionary nature of municipal government. We want to get to a point where we're planning ahead, right?
Mm-hmm.
Scheduling things ahead of time, putting in the conceptual work where we're streamlining processes and all that. But if we want to create a culture of planning, we can't be doing it for people. I mean, it's nice that we can hand them over something so they're not starting from scratch and we can walk them through the process now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They're not going to have to experience all of the problems that we did. 7 years of experience under our belt, we can give them some tips. But I just think if we truly want to have a culture change, this is a really good way to do it. If we force people to think strategically, they'll start thinking strategically.
Is this something, Rory, in your mind that we could roll out gradually? Specifically, I don't know all of the players, but just from the interview process and whatnot, I can think of a couple of department heads who would probably embrace this a lot faster and might be instrumental in helping us craft the process. So maybe instead of trying to shove everybody into the box, we start with a couple. And then gradually add more people in. Does that, or do you think it's everybody in the pool, let's go?
I think it's a thing we bring to the senior staff, who are, for the most part, the ones who are go-getters anyway,
Okay.
thinkers. But I mean, I don't want to go into this half-cocked, you know what I mean? That's why
For sure.
I think we spend some time creating a transition plan, right? And part of it is, well, how do we introduce it to the town? Who are the players and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth, as I said to you yesterday, I think it's worth exploring, and doing the work to, the preparatory work. I will still be curious to hear what's going on with the 1 year goals or deliverables. And then, and then we start to draw out what this new system looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what we do through the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
On that, while we have August, September, October, November, December, right? We have 5 months of meetings for the year. So we spend it trying to throw something together for next year's plan, which I think we have time. I think that's plenty of time to take a look at what we have. And, if we all review the plan for the next meeting and pick out some items that we would like to see progress on, and then down into smaller pieces, or we do some clarification on some of the pieces that are a little, the ones that we thought required some more work, and come back in August and discuss those. I mean, we could put it together in 2-3 months, I'm sure. And then that's one agenda item per night. And the other agenda item is like, all right, so we're going to have to have the same conversation again next month with hopefully, Bob and Don. And hopefully they're on board. If not, maybe we can come up with some kind of compromise, but that's how I see us moving forward.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see Bob's.
Sorry guys.
No worries.
to see Bob's response.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He seemed to not be 100% on board with what I was saying, but I would. What's interesting is to do the minutes, I've had to rewatch the recordings, and frankly, I don't know how you guys listen to me talk because I'm watching myself and I'm like, there's 4-second pauses where I have a bad habit of like staring up while I put sentences together in my head. I'm insufferable. I don't know how you guys deal with it.
Everybody has quirks on video conferences. There's no right or wrong way to do it.
Thank you, Steve.
Nope.
Um,
And you're probably the only one who watches them anyway, so.
I have like one view. No, there's some bots, I think, that also, but anyway, I also realized that there were a couple of points in the past couple of meetings where people were like talking past each other. And I was always a party, so I think I need to listen better, but we'll have a conversation at the next meeting, and we'll see what Bob thinks is all. Obviously he's on board with the strategic planning process, right? So, I'm sure we will find some sort of compromise.
I think, and this is a guess, but I think for Bob, it will be important that we are able to publicly demonstrate progress. That's a recurrent, the theme of the dashboard and I know that, or I feel like that's something that is very important to him. So maybe as we're thinking about it, we put that into the mix and saying, not only is it going to be, professional staff being accountable to the board, there is also that component where we are demonstrating accountability to the public.
Yeah, and one thing we've always struggled with is like, we're trying to do the work and we forget to celebrate our success, which is an important component of the strategic planning process, right? That's another way to generate buy-in is when it works, you want to celebrate it, you want to publicize it.
Right.
You don't do a good job of that.
No t-shirts.
That's what we need. We'll hand them out at the Christmas party every year.
There you go. All right. Well, maybe then, between now and our next session, we digest a bit about, what Rory has said today and, plan to revisit it. Maybe we each sort of get some thoughts together on what it might look like, but, how we might, not only keep what we've done moving forward, but then start to transition it into, rather than us being prescriptive and telling folks how to do their job, we listen to them and, and help them do their jobs better.
Yeah. I mean, I think, so another thing, I guess my question is like, okay, it's July, we meet in August. Are we doing anything for then? Because we can send an email to Bob and Don, and assign homework if we're doing homework, just to try to salvage the year, and still have something to put forward and stay on timeline. Or do we want to wait to have the discussion first?
I feel like because this is a significant change of direction, that we should have the conversation virtually or in person, you know, as opposed to, hey, here's an email. Hey, we've made this big change and there
You
it
tell them
is.
to just watch this video.
Can do that.
No, we don't have to do that.
Point.
That's
We'll get those view counts up.
Three views. So
Okay.
I think we also need to, and hopefully by August we'll get feedback on where the implementation plan as it was presented, you know, where that landed. And again, you know, it's been a weird year. So
There should be a senior staff meeting before we meet in August. So we should have it.
I mean, not that that's going to change anything per se, but I think it'll be interesting data.
That's useful.
You know? Yeah. So, especially if the response is, you know, this doesn't make sense. These goals don't, you know, these goals aren't valid, you know, especially in light of the fact that we took their words, homogenized them, and gave them back. But as we talked about yesterday as well, in some cases, you know, we interviewed these folks 5 or 6 years ago. So, and there really is no way for us to keep up on pace to interview everybody every year. Ain't happening.
You know, I don't know how long it's been. When do you think the last interview? I mean, I think like 2 years ago at this point, easy. And we've been talking for 3-4 years about how we're going to restart that process. And we're talking about it and we're talking about it. And I think because none of us want to do it again, because it was, I mean, that was a grind.
It was a grind. It was, you know, it was 2-3 nights a week. And it still took us forever and a day.
Yeah.
So, well, Rory, do you have a homework assignment in mind that,
what I was saying dropped out for a second, Stefan, was, I think if we're going to stay on track, we had like by October, we put together a tentative list. And then in November, we give it to the selectmen and they give us feedback. And then we revise it in December and get it back to them in December for approval. That was kind of the timeline that we had laid out. So in order to do that, we have 2 meetings, 3 meetings, before that. So we can either change around our timeline or, we're going to have to maybe just read over the plan and kind of pick out some items for inclusion, right? Because, what we talked about was like some of these bigger things we'll never assign for a 1-year thing, right? We got to break them down in smaller parts. So at that point, it's just picking maybe what we think is important, prioritizing them, breaking them down, and then including it. So I think if everybody just read it over with that in mind and came prepared to discuss a couple of things that they thought, are worthy of inclusion.
For the 2021 annual.
Yeah, right. I mean,
okay.
And then we can see what we come back with, and we might have to do some more. I don't know. We'll see. It's also kind of hard to gauge what the next year is going to be like.
Right.
How big the 1-year plan should be, but I think if we just reread it, come prepared to discuss what we think should be prioritized for next year, that'll be good enough.
Okay.
The other thing is just start brainstorming the professionalization process. I mean, very rough until we have the conversation with everybody and everybody's on board. So maybe not for the next meeting, but through the end of the year, think about it outside of the meeting, and then, you know, we can discuss what we've thought of in terms of how we can start to build that process for next year.
Is there an oversight-based board that exists today that you would see as a model?
There are some very lax oversight boards, you know, like
I mean, I think it's okay for us to say, you know what, we're going to create a format. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time. You know, we're going to create a format and a structure that is very specific to this task, and it is unique.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it will be, no matter what, right? I mean, like I said, not that they all don't require, they don't. I'm sorry, they don't. The Recreation Commission doesn't need to exist at this point, but it does. But I think it will be unique because while some others probably should put in the effort, they don't.
I think it would be useful for us to, or maybe for you, and I hate to put it on your plate, to just define which departments, you know, or which senior staff, sort of what that would look like in terms of who would report up. Who, you know, who are we overseeing?
Well,
you know,
I mean, I'm your champion, right?
mm-hmm.
So it would just be a matter of like talking to Kurt and be like, hey, Kurt, I need you to tell people they're doing this.
But I think, yes. However, I think if we're going to make it a professional culture, or we're going to change the culture to what you would like it to be, it has to be formalized.
Yeah. And I mean, the big part is going to be even some of the very forward thinkers. A lot of them have, you know, their area of expertise, and that it's one of the reasons that they're so good. You know, so thinking about some people who I have in mind, like, I don't know that they're going to be willing to do interviews. That, you know, that's something that that won't be necessarily a strength of theirs, to do interviews with other staff members. You know, it's like Seymour's such a small place. It kind of they'll brush it off as like, this is ridiculous. You know, you're telling me I gotta formally interview this person I talk to every day in the hallway?
Well, and I think that's what we need to define and what we need to formalize. What is the expectation? I mean, no, it doesn't, you know, if you got two people who work in a department, it doesn't make any sense to have a formal,
yeah,
you know, but I think if we just go, well, interview people if you feel like it, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
So I think it has to be, whatever it is, it has to be formalized. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of people. We're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
It has to be structured, you know?
Yeah. Listen, guys, I'm really sorry. I have to get going.
Yeah.
This has been like a hellacious day for me. I've had so much going on, but
No worries.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
You, you be
Yeah,
there
we're
any-
winding down anyway.
All right. Is there anything else that we have to vote on before we close
No.
the meeting?
We're good.
Nope. I can go ahead and, we have no public that's joined us. So I'll take a motion to adjourn, because I think we're pretty much done.
Okay. So moved.
Second.
All right, Stefan first, Rory second.
Yeah.
7:48 PM. All right, take care.
Yeah. Sorry again, guys.
No worries.
All right,
All right.
All right.
Take care, guys.
cheers.
Bye.